Hello everybody, it's Dr. Bream, founder of Bream Medical. This week, instead of doing a written blog, we're going to do a video blog about the flu. So we are definitely into flu season. We got a much earlier start than usual. Traditional flu season starts around the beginning of November and usually runs through the end of February or March, peaking in the Christmas, New Year's time, as most people are inside, which is where flu generally tends to spread. Flu infects between 20 and 40 million Americans in a typical flu season and hospitalizes between 300,000 and 700,000 people annually. The highest risk are children less than 2 years old, the elderly, people with multiple comorbidities, pre-existing lung disease, and multiple complex medical problems. The flu usually causes between 40 and 50,000 deaths per year. Flu is spread by droplets. That's different than COVID, which initially everybody said was spread by droplets. But if you're reading the early literature, like Bream Medical was, we knew this was airborne from the start. The studies were quite clear on that, but for reasons unknown, people kept saying that it was spread by droplets. Flu is very different from COVID in the fact that it is less infectious. Omicron COVID had an R naught of about 18, meaning that any preventative measures, one person would be expected to infect 18 people with COVID, whereas the R naught for flu is between 1 and 2, meaning that for every person that's infected with flu, they would be expected to infect 1 to 2 more people. The flu certainly is not completely prevented by the flu shot, but the flu shot certainly does help. The flu shot is different from a lot of the new COVID vaccines, the mRNA vaccines in particular, in the fact that it was developed in the 1930s and the flu shot has been available since around 1945 widely. Certainly there have been iterations in the flu vaccine and the technology, but in general, this is a vaccine that now is approaching 80 years old. So there's a lot of history with it. Certainly need to avoid if you have egg protein allergies. The flu vaccine does have data, if you start reading, that it decreases the flu incidence across pretty much all age groups. And the randomized controlled trial data is overall lacking, I would say, but observational studies generally agree that there's a decreased mortality among those who have received the flu vaccine comparatively to those receiving placebo or no vaccine. It's very difficult to measure the effectiveness of the flu vaccine because a lot of times we don't test people for the flu. And so when the studies are looking at this, if they actually test the flu vaccine against people who tested positive for the flu, then it is more effective than the generally accepted measure of how effective the flu vaccine is in preventing influenza-like illness. Because what we used to do in the pre-COVID era was, once we realized we had a critical mass of flu cases, meaning that anybody that came in with a flu-like illness was basically positive for flu, we just quit testing, assumed it was flu, and treated it as flu. But now with the COVID era, we've not really been doing that anymore. And obviously we've seen very little flu in the past 3 years. Basically, the end of 2020 was really the last we've seen, except for earlier in 2022, whenever the Omicron wave calmed down. I believe it was in April, we had sort of a small burst of flu that quickly died off. So just a reminder, certainly if you're high risk, would encourage you to get your flu shot. If you have children under 2, if you're elderly, or you have multiple complex medical conditions, or if you're a family member of somebody like that, would certainly recommend getting a flu shot. Like I said, it's been around for about 80 years now. The studies on that show that the flu shot actually does decrease transmission of the flu. And while there are not a lot of randomized controlled trials on this, the observational studies are generally in agreement that the flu does decrease the risk of severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Anyway, give us a call, Bream Medical, for an appointment to be seen, 704-216-1263. You can visit us at breammedical.com. We have locations open in Salisbury and Edenton, soon to be coming to Edenton, North Carolina. Locations are open in Salisbury and Stokesdale, soon to be coming to Edenton once that renovation is complete. So keep yourself safe, keep your hands washed. If you're sick, don't go around other people. Just use common sense. If you have the flu, Tamiflu is available. It does in a lot of children. We may not use it because of the nausea side effects. But those we can use it who are high risk, we will. And like I said, if you're sick with flu, just use common sense, but don't go around other people. Go back to work or school until you've been 24 hours without any fever, without any medication. So anyway, thanks for joining today, and hopefully we'll see you at Bree Medical soon.